In a world where jobs are how most people make money, one man, one desire, one challenge dares to break the mold. Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where we don't work for money. Money works for us. Coming soon. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where cash flow is king. Real estate investing, the means, so you can enjoy your retirement dreams. This is the show where we cut right to the chase. No sales pitch, no long monologues, just simple how-to real estate investing advice, so you can earn the passive income you need to enjoy your retirement today. And now, your host and chief old dog, Bill Manacero.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network. I'm your host, Bill Manacero, and this is the show where 50-plussers and anyone else who wants to join us get solid, no sales pitch real estate investing advice to help generate real cash flow. This podcast airs twice weekly on Mondays and Fridays, and if you aren't already a subscriber, go to iTunes or Apple Podcasts, type in Old Dogs, DAWGS, find our podcast and subscribe. Well, I am stoked about today's guest, okay? And I guess I have to give a disclaimer here because it is somebody that I know, actually somebody that I've worked with very successfully in the Indianapolis market. And I'm talking about Cory Gardner. Cory started his real estate career in 2016 as an investor in Chicago. Now, today, he is the managing broker of a boutique real estate brokerage, Gardner Property Group, based in downtown Indianapolis. Cory works in both commercial and residential investment real estate with a core mission to facilitate transactions with hyper-local market expertise, first-class advisory services, and aggressive negotiations. And I can verify all of those areas that he has been outstanding working with me. But again, I'm going to let you guys keep an open mind. Okay, here we go. Cory Gardner, welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network.
Thank you so much, Bill. I appreciate those kinds words.
Well, it is great having you on, and
I'm super happy to be here.
Yeah, this is great. I think one of the things that I really haven't covered enough, and I have had my share of brokers on, is that sort of interpersonal side of brokering. I think one of the things that even got me even talking to you was the fact that you were approachable, that you understand the client mindset, I guess, because you are an investor.
Right.
And so it was really easy. And some people, I've dealt with and even done deals with in the past, that was not always the case. And so anyway, I wanted to, talk to you about that aspect, about how people can really get to make contact with good people like you that they can have a long-term relationship with, like we have. So,
definitely.
But first, before we get started,
Sure.
Our audience likes to know about you. Who is the real Cory Gardner? Okay.
Yeah, who is the real Cory Gardner? Can he please stand up here? Yeah. So, I'll give you some background, maybe from the start, and talk a little bit about actually how I found you initially, because I think that's how we got introduced. I grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, went to school at IU in Bloomington, moved to Chicago. That's where I got started. But, and I've always been in sales my whole life. Prime example of this, in middle school, I was selling candy out of my locker at a candy business. And so that's kind of where I got my start in sales. And that just progressed on. I was selling HR software in Chicago. And that was kind of where I dove in. But real estate for me kind of started well before that. When I was at IU, I had, no real interest in the curriculum that I was studying. I was studying psychology. Truthfully, it was just so I could understand myself because I thought I was crazy, and so I could understand other people. But I also knew that those skills that I was learning and understanding the mind and psychology, the way people think, was going to be applicable no matter what I did, no matter what field of work I went into. Interacting with people is going to be important. And so you pair that with my background in sales, just growing up, and I was in a network marketing company in college. And I learned just so much talking to people. I learned so much about the mind and the way things work. I truly believe a lot of that core skill set has kind of set me up for success here in real estate and really everything that I do on a daily basis. So that's kind of the high level background. I'd always had this idea that I wanted to be in sales or business in some capacity, didn't really know what it was. When I graduated and I was working in Chicago, I was working for an early stage startup and loved the environment. I loved the hustle and the entrepreneurial spirit in that space. At the time, had already sort of decided that real estate was what I needed to get into, but I didn't know how at that time. If we rewind a couple of years before then, when I'm back at IU in Indiana, in Bloomington, Indiana, I had one of my landlords owned, it was 20 or 22 doors, just outright cash that he had built up over the years. And that was an incredible thing for me to understand. Number one, not having any debt on his properties because it was pure cash flow outside of his operation expenses. But that he had a portfolio that big. And, as a kid not being around real estate growing up, that was a foreign concept to me. And that's sort of where I think I caught the bug initially, but it didn't come to fruition. I had to nurture it for, a couple of years after that. So, jumping around a lot there, but the long short of it is I've kind of always been in sales, and real estate was sort of a natural progression for me.
Well, you've got the right personality for it. I'll tell you, it's just
thank you.
No, it really is conducive to as investors. We're kind of focused, single-minded sometimes, and for somebody to understand it or understand us, is a challenge sometimes, and there are certain brokers that just they want to classify you as soon as they talk to you, and they kind of find a slot to put you in. You don't make a person feel like that at all. You may be doing it, but it's not obvious, And so it's kind of neat because you treat everybody like they're the biggest deal, kind of deal. Yep. And I think that is really really key. But that's neat. Well, I think one of the things that a lot of folks want to know, and then especially people starting out, or maybe it's a person, for example, who is has a few single family homes, and they've never really had to develop those relationships because they've only got a couple of things, but they're looking at multifamily now, and they're thinking, God, it'd be nice to get a fourplex or an eightplex or maybe even 16 unit or whatever. And how do I do that? And this is another thing I think that, again, is sort of a benefit here. And I hope it doesn't sound like I'm trying to sell you too hard here, because I'm just talking about, the experience and how, working with you is, that you also help people, kind of know what to do, what not to do, and
sure.
And what to look for and what not to look for. And but I think the thing that stands out is being an advocate for that client. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that. Is how do you get to know clients? How do clients get to know you? And how do those you could even talk about our how we connected, and kind of expand that out to how you make contact with some of your key clients.
Yeah, definitely. First and foremost, I think it's important to remember that life in general, business and real estate very specifically, is all about relationships at the end of the day. very much so. If you walk in a room and you don't know anybody and you can walk out of the room and you know every single person, you have expanded, maybe directly your potential earning income, but also future opportunity to do business with these people. That's just cherry on top of the relationship that you now have with maybe friends, maybe life partners, whatever it is. So I think it's number one, it's important to remember that. And then you got to think about, well, how do you build a relationship with somebody? And it's starting out, I think it's easy to get caught up in, short-sighted thinking, short-term thinking of like, I want success now. I want properties now. I want to do deals now. And you have to remember that like, this is a long game. And if you look at it that way, it's easier to kind of take a step back, relax, just have a conversation with somebody, get to know them. What are they passionate about? What do they like to do on the weekends? Talk about the family life, stuff like that at a high level helps you start to just understand where that person is in life, because nobody knows everything about the other person. And so for me, at least in my process, and I hate to call it a process because I just try to be natural and have a conversation with people. I try not to sound like a robot when I'm meeting somebody new. And I try to have sort of a genuine, earnest interest in what's going on. And oftentimes it's a conversation focused around real estate. And so just kind of talking to people and really learning and getting to know them and where they're at, I think helps you set up a baseline understanding of, what is this person about? What are they like? Are they, and from there you can build on it. It's like, is this the right type of person for me to be, number one, spending my time talking to or spending my time with? Number two, is this somebody I want to do business with? And I think if you can start to evaluate those things based off that information that you've sort of already gathered beforehand of just having the casual conversation, that sets you up for success, no matter what you're going to do beyond that. And that all comes back to the relationship, really psychology, but just having conversations and just getting to know people. So, applying that specifically to real estate and like building a relationship with a broker, or me as a broker building a relationship with clients, it's just having conversations. It's not super complicated. There isn't a silver bullet to this. But I do think it's important that people have conversations often. They're consistent. They follow up. If you're an investor out there and you're looking at making a connection with a broker or trying to get into a certain market or get into a certain space, you need to know who the players are, and you need to either have an introduction to those players. And when I say players, I'm talking about brokers right now. You need to have an introduction to them. And if you can't get one, you need to put your best foot forward and find a way to get in front of them, explain who you are in a simple enough format that they can digest that. And then they're thinking about you the next time that they have a deal come up. And so there's a lot of things that go into that. But again, at the end of the day, it's just getting in front of them and having that conversation and getting to know them. And, I have people that call me very often. They try and stay in front of me and they do a good job of putting forth the effort. But here's the truth of the matter is I don't have enough time today to talk to every single person at all times. So the better job that an investor can do to make their presentation to a broker and showcase that they are serious and focused. They have a business plan. Here's what I do. Here's what I'm looking for. That makes it a lot easier when you're starting that relationship journey, having a conversation with that broker, that they can look at the buyer profile of that person. That's when they're kind of putting it all together. But they can look at that and say, okay, yeah, this is somebody that I want to spend my time with. This is somebody that, if we get into a transaction together, I'm not going to dread calling them every day. And if you can present yourself that way, the chances of you getting brought a deal or the chances of you being in a transaction with them goes up. So, I think that's the high level of it. And there's a lot of stuff in there that's important to think about when you're trying to start off building that relationship. I just think it's so important that people remember that it's a long game and it's all about relationships at the end of the day. And if you focus on building that and being patient, things will happen for you over time.
Yeah, that's a great attitude, and I like the statement that it is a long-term game. And I think especially for a lot of these folks that are approaching retirement or in retirement, that the ideal would be to find that property that really is has the cash flow that you want and need. I mean, maybe it'll be a little, I don't know, 8 unit, or it could be a 100 unit, but or maybe it's smaller too. But the idea is to have a property that you can get that isn't going to require a lot out of you. and where you can have strong property management in place. And then, you hold on to that property indefinitely while it's being paid down and the mortgage is being paid by your tenants. And you don't really have to think about it except, tax time or whatever. I mean, that's kind of like maybe a dream land, but at the same time, if your broker knows that when you come to them and say, hey, look, I want this to be as passive as it can be. And, I know that you have a lot of connections and you can even help, refer to good property management or, an area of town that, look, these properties are not going to be high maintenance because they're in big demand. You can get the best tenants, and you need that kind of person to help you out, especially if you're an out-of-town investor like me.
Yeah, definitely. I think you said maybe that's a dream. I'm going to disagree with you here. I don't think it's a dream. It's absolutely possible. And the reason I say it's possible, it's because I've done it 2 or 3 times now, with my client here in Indianapolis. I have a particular client that's extremely aggressive, and for the last 4 years, 5 years, going on 6 years of investing with them, we've cherry picked deals that weren't available at the time. Called the seller. It's not a conversation they wanted to have, but because we were focused, consistent, knew exactly what we were looking for, and were aggressive with it, and we stayed consistent with it. 3 years later, I'm in the transaction trading that deal, selling that deal to them. So it can happen, but it requires somebody to, again, think about this is a long game. Maybe it's not going to happen today, but it might happen in 2, 3, 4 years. And if you just remember that and you're always having those conversations, eventually, it's a numbers game, right? And you have enough conversations. Out of 100 conversations, 1 or 2 of those conversations might turn into something. If you keep having 100 conversations though on a regular basis, those 1 or 2 conversations that turn into something, well, over 365 days, or you start stacking that up, the compound effect really starts to work in your favor. So they are far and few between, but it's not impossible. People do it all the time. There's a lot of market activity, even today, in the interest rate environment we are right now, and where the world is. People are still transacting in the market, and people are still buying good deals. So stuff's out there. But again, it comes back to those relationships. And maybe if there's one more thing that I'll add to set your listeners up for success, if they're looking to, like I said, build a relationship with a broker or just get into a market, is, having a business plan that's concise and focused on what you're looking for really will set yourselves apart from the competition in terms of investors. The conversation you're having with a REIT, for example, super well put together, super formal. It doesn't have to be formal like that, but if you are focused and specific, that helps a lot when you're having that conversation with a broker to help find those dream type deals. Because if that's your criteria, like, hey, here's exactly what I'm looking for, and you present it to them and you follow up and you build that relationship and you have those conversations, when that comes up or they hear of something or they know, hey, so-and-so owner is thinking about, disposing of this asset, and they know that your criteria is exactly what that building fits, you might be the first person they call. But if you never put that, executive summary together, if you never have those conversations with them, who knows what you're missing out on.
So you recommend a document that somebody would actually give to you that would help you to have a better idea of what their what their goal is, their target.
Yeah, no, I do recommend that, and I'll explain why. Maybe it sounds like I'm trying to be lazy, but I don't think I'm trying to be lazy. I think I'm trying to make the job, and let me put it this way, the service that I want to deliver to my clients, I want to do that in as streamlined a fashion as possible. I want it to be an amazing experience for them to work with me. If they make it easy for me to do that, it's a lot easier for me to deliver that, white glove service. So if they're coming to me with a very refined, specific set of criteria, and I like to see an executive summary if I'm working with somebody new, or at least understanding their background, if they're presenting that to me and, it's easy to digest, it showcases their experience, whatever it is. Well, now I know I have something, number one, that I can reference. Number two, I know that they're focused, they're committed to this. And if I come to them with an opportunity, I don't have to question whether or not they're going to take a serious look at it and get back to me because they've presented, hey, look, I'm a serious person. Here's my background. Or even if they don't have experience, here's what we're looking for. Here's how we're going to get this done. Having that put together makes my job easier. But in turn, it really ends up affecting the investor because if they're presenting it that way to me, when I find something, it's easy for me to give it to them.
All right. Great information. Give me an example. I hate to kind of focus on negative, but maybe what would be something that a new person trying to, make contact with you and to start to build a relationship? What is something that people do that they just shouldn't do? I
mean, sure, there's a lot of those, but the first one that came to mind when you said that was if I ask, what are you looking for? And I get a response like, well, I'm just looking for good deals, something that's going to cash flow well. And, I'm looking to be just kind of hands off. Okay. So does the other, 20,000 investors that are looking in this market here. I need to know. I'll give you a quick quote. I heard this. Jesse Itzler said this. I don't know if you know who he is. He said, why are you a special brownie? And I'm not talking about those special brownies. I'm talking about why is your business plan unique? Why are you a unique investor? And why should I give you attention? You need to sell yourself to me. And so just being general and broad and sort of unguided is not going to win my attention if I'm talking to somebody. Now, if they're just starting out and maybe they're not ready for it, that's understandable. But if this is something that, you've been thinking about and maybe you've been doing your research, you've been listening to this podcast and sort of building the idea in your head of what you want to do, put it to paper, refine it, work on it, figure out exactly what it is you're wanting to do, and then go out and try and find it. Get feedback from the market, refine it if you need to, but continue to put forth that effort and put it forward in a clear, concise plan. Because when you're broad in general, at least with somebody like me, frankly, it makes me not feel motivated to put in the effort to find opportunities for somebody like that.
Right. That's a good point. And sort of on the other side of the coin, can you give me an example of somebody that, maybe just cold called you and just did it right, and, maybe they're even a long-term client of yours now?
Yeah. I don't know if I can think of somebody specific off the top of my head. I know that I've had conversations with investors that were either, a referral or an introduction. Maybe they saw me online, or they may have even heard my name mentioned on a podcast. And so they reached out, and they were very specific. They said, hey, here's what I currently own. This is what I've done. Maybe it's in a different market. Oftentimes it's out of state, California or a coastal market. Here's what I've done. Here's what I'm looking to get into. I like the Indianapolis market for the 3,000 reasons that they are. And, is this something that you feel like you can help me find? Are you, they were almost interviewing me as a broker. Do you find these types of opportunities? And that gives me an opportunity to say, yes, I do, or maybe no, I don't. Or if I do, talk about some of the recent ones. But I know that I've had those conversations where I hung up the phone and I thought, this is somebody that, knows what they were talking about, such that if I found an opportunity, I would be able to filter it using their criteria without even talking to them initially. And that type of presentation or conversation with an investor, makes my life a lot easier. It makes your life a lot easier if it's a good deal for you. So I can't think of anybody specific, but maybe I'm talking in circles of just stay focused and have your ducks in a row. But I know that I've had conversations with folks that, again, knew what their background was. They kind of put it together, and they knew what they were looking for, and how to execute that business plan really is the most important part.
I think that's great advice, because I think that you're going into a new market. Yeah, there's going to be those that are just fishing and trying to figure out if Indianapolis is a good market. So, but then they're going to take a lot of your time sometimes for you to have to sell them on the market, which you might not be time for, you may not have the time to do that. So doing their homework and checking out the market first before trying to build those broker relationships, which is what I think I heard you say is really smart and a good approach to do.
100%.
I remember when I first got started, I was I think I had one of my first contacts were like Dave Lindahl's and his organization and stuff. And, there was always talk about, you just got to get those pocket listings. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And so everybody's out there thinking, oh yeah, I gotta get the pocket listing, which is, for those that don't know what that is, those are those exclusive, off market properties that brokers, have in their pocket, supposedly. No, but it's, that they're going to make available to really their best clients, and so that, I know I was real naive too, and as I'm calling people and stuff like that, and I'm thinking, well, do you got any pocket listings? It's like these guys are probably going, oh man, this guy's gonna be. But maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because one thing I got to say again, and again, disclaimer, because I really love your approach, but was the fact that we just sold 2 properties, one fairly sizable, and in that process we never listed these properties, and you had people that already and I'm not talking, now I always thought that like oh gosh, if I'm going to be one of those pocket listings, I don't want to get less than market, right? So here I am, I'm on the other side of it. Okay, I'm the pocket listing, so to speak, because didn't go on the market, and usually those things you think are way below market, but I told you exactly what I wanted. We got exactly what we wanted. We got more in some cases, right. and I'm going, okay, this is pretty nice. It's not so bad being the pocket listing guy, right? But on the other hand, you got the person that's going and looking for those, and I guess those were your preferred clients that you were able to just call up and share the deals. So what advice would you have for people? I know that like a brand new person, the first time out, that it's not likely that they're going to find that off-market deal. But what advice would you have for people that are, that are trying to build that kind of relationship where they can eventually be the person to get those deals?
Yeah. So it's interesting because those couple transactions, how those ended up going. Trying to think back, the group that we ended up selling the larger asset to was somebody that I had been building a relationship with just that year, but I knew very specifically what they were looking for. Again, going back to the type of asset and their business plan on how to execute that. The other groups that I knew that I was bringing that listing to, a few of them were newer, as in, very fresh introductions to me. Some of them I had been putting opportunities in front of for a little while now. At the end of the day, though, what sort of put them all in the same bucket was I had spoken to them enough, with enough frequency over the last 2, 3, 4 years that I knew if I made the phone call and, just presented the information that I had. Obviously, as a broker, there's some work that I'm doing to present all of this data so that it's attractive to somebody, but I'm presenting that information, and I knew that I could have a serious conversation with them. It's not going to just go into their inbox and they're going to forget about it. They're going to look at it and they're going to give me feedback. And somebody that maybe doesn't have that relationship with a broker yet, that they're looking for that. Again, it's coming back to, when's the last time you talked to them? When's the last time you looked for an opportunity to work with them? Or what I love when I'm bringing specifically something that's off market or a pocket listing to an investor, I love it when they get back to me, even if it's a no, when they get back to me very quickly and say, hey, look, we ran this through our model. Here's what we're looking at. This isn't a fit, and here's why. When that happens quickly, that makes me feel good, because then I know the next time that I have something, maybe it's a better fit, I know that I can bring it to them, and I'm not going to have to be sitting there wondering and guessing what's going on. So I guess what I'm saying to the investor side or your listeners is, get back when somebody puts an opportunity in front of you. Not everybody reads their email right away, but when you do, check it over and see if it fits into your model. If you can do that in 5 or 10 minutes and get back to them, hey, I think this is a fit. I need to do some more looking, but I wanted to let you know that I'm looking into this further. That's positive feedback to me. There's that piece of it. And again, I think that just comes back to the relationship component of having those conversations. Maybe it's getting back to people quickly and following up with them. I think those two components are what have, for you, they were advantage to you as the seller in those scenarios. I got quick feedback. Maybe they didn't jump on the opportunity right away, but it was something that I knew that they were digging into because I had that relationship with that person.
Yeah, that's really key. Good point. Is sometimes, and I've seen this happen with new people too. That'll be trying to build that relationship. They're talking to this broker, and haven't heard from them. Figured they weren't interested. Then they send them a deal. They look at the deal, in an email or whatever, and it's not it. But they don't get back to the person after they've been trying to build this relationship. And I've tried to share with people. I go, no, if the deal is the worst, I mean, some of the other brokers that I had in Indy in particular, part of my challenge was them understanding what I'm looking for, because I think I spelled it out really well, and then all of a sudden, they do send me something that wasn't what I wanted at all. And if I didn't get back to them and tell them why, then it wouldn't have made any sense. The problem was they kept sending this, same things.
Right.
And so I don't know if I was just on their list and they just kept sending it out, but I just felt like, no, you're missing the mark, and I think that's one thing that, at least from the standpoint of you and I working together, is, we do it. I mean, there's no wasting of time like that,
Right.
It's, I understand exactly what you're looking for, Bill, in this in particular case of, selling, and you didn't bring me people that were, that didn't meet that. And, so that was, that, I think that's so key. And, but on the other hand, the investor has to be able to respond and at least give that person, the opportunity to, oh man, I'm sorry, I didn't, like you said, that's not what he wanted, but now I know better what he does want. So when I do see it, that I know, and that's the way it should be. That's how people should communicate.
Right.
So that's a great.
What's the
great
sales
point.
quote? I think it's like, is a fast no is better than a slow maybe.
Right.
It's exactly that.
Yeah. Good point. Really good quote. Wow. Well, what, I mean, our audience that I'm talking about, we're primarily focused on people, 50 years of age and older. They're approaching retirement. They're or in retirement. They're looking at generating that additional cash flow. And I know you've dealt with all kinds of investors, but this is a group that wants to be more passive, but at the same time, they they want good returns and everything else too. So, what advice would you have for them? And it could be market specific for Indy or just in general. How should they be approaching their real estate investing efforts?
Yeah, great question. I think there's maybe two things here that I'll say. And let me preface this by saying, I'm probably a lot younger than your audience here, so here's my perspective on what I've seen transacting in this space for the last 6 years now. Is number one, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. Second best time is today. You gotta start. You have to get out in the market and start poking holes and stuff. And you can't. There's a really cool book. You can't learn to ride a bike at a seminar. I think that's the title. But conceptually, you can't read about push-ups and know how to do push-ups. You have to do push-ups, right? So that's my first piece is like, look, if this is the space that you want to be spending your time in, if you're looking for more of a passive way to create wealth for you and your family, you can't just keep reading about it. You have to go out and do. And maybe doing today is just picking up the phone and calling a couple of the brokers in your area that, maybe you find a LoopNet or CoStar or, wherever you're finding it. Or maybe you ask another investor in a group that you're in, hey, who's somebody that you recommend for this type of an asset? Here's what I'm looking to do. Can you make an introduction? Maybe that's the only doing you're making this month, but that's a lot better than reading the forums or reading another book. So that's the first piece that I would say is time is precious. Let's make the most of it. Go out there and have the conversation and take the first step. You don't have to, see the whole staircase or whatever that is. Just take the first step and then you can take the next one after that. The second thing that I'll say that it goes hand in hand with everything else we've been talking about is, I'm going to mess it up. It's from Jordan Peterson. It's one of his 12 rules from his technically his second book.
No, I love Jordan Peterson.
You like him? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Then you'll love this. It's focus on one thing as much as you possibly can and see what happens. And what I mean by that is, and maybe there's some other meanings, but what I mean by that in this context is shiny object syndrome plagues every human that I know. It plagues me every day. If you can find a way to pick one or two things within real estate and the type of asset you want or the area, the location you want, and just focus on that as much as you possibly can, as hard as you can for, let's call it a year, maybe 2 years. That's going to make a huge difference if you're focusing on that compared to if you have 35 different things you're thinking about all the time. That's not going to bode well for you and your portfolio or your family's wealth over the long-term timeline. And if you're looking to, again, spend your time and energy in the real estate space, I think focusing on a particular component of it, because there's a lot of different things you could do. You could be a hard money lender. You could buy residential, single family investment properties. You can buy luxury Airbnb rentals. You could buy small multifamily. You could buy large multifamily. You could put your money into a fund. There's 100 different ways to get into this business. Picking one of those things and maybe not becoming an expert, but really focusing in on it, I think is going to help somebody who's maybe entering retirement years, or they know in the next 5, 10, 15 years, that's where they want to be. Focusing on that one or two things now today is going to set you up for success, down the road whenever it really, really counts.
Oh, that's great advice. I think that one of the things that I might just add to that too is for the investors, and this is for us investors, when you do go looking for those broker relationships, like you decide, Indy is the market I want to go, or Dallas, or whatever it is. You need to go ready too.
Right.
You've got to know where your money's coming from. You've got to have that either that mortgage broker or bank or whatever lined up, ready to move, especially in today's market. But, their brokers are so busy right now because there are so many things going on that they're not going to have time, for you to go to this and then that and try to find this source of funding. I mean, you have to have that stuff in place, and the good
100%.
deals are going to slip away, aren't they? I mean, seriously,
Right.
the seller's going to go, I can't, I want to sell this property. And,
Yep.
and usually there's a timeline there. So, just for them, I think that the relationship is so much better when you've got somebody that's got the money and they're ready to go. And then you can, just use all your skills to be able to find them exactly what they want.
Yep. Totally agree with that.
Yeah. Awesome. When I first met you, you were kind of, starting out a little bit, I think.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
And you have just gone, through the rock. You're like a top broker
Done
in
well.
Indianapolis. You're doing really great.
Yeah.
What's sort of your long play here? I know you're
Yeah.
also very active investing too. And that's what
I am.
is a real
Yeah.
plus, because you understand us, and you know what a good deal looks like, and from the other side, right? So what's sort of your long-term play? What excites you about your future?
Yeah, I'll add some more color to that. When I was moving from Chicago to Indianapolis, that was actually part of my decision-making process. Was I was looking at the market fundamentals of Indianapolis, comparing them to other markets, and it was very attractive. And this is back 2016, 2017, really strong population growth, good job growth. There were a couple really big tech acquisitions here business-wise that attracted talent from the coastal markets, business-wise, and just human capital resources. And so I was looking at all those things, and that was exciting to me. So today, looking at all that, looking back, all of that kind of has come to fruition. I'm excited today now, though, seeing all of that, gaining traction really because of that decision to come back and really build my business in Indianapolis, because I knew what the market looked like here. That excites me because I'm building on top of that base. And what I've done with my business is created this really, again, it's boutique and unique, no pun intended, but we're out in the market, kicking and screaming, so to speak, and it's exciting. It's fun. We're making a name for ourselves, and I'm just really, I guess I'm grateful, but it's exciting to me to see the decision that was made 4 or 5 years ago and all of those seeds being planted sort of coming to fruition. But now realizing like, hey, look, 4 or 5 years from now, where do you want to be with this? Because look what you've done in just a short amount of time now. You could really compound this growth. So having that traction component, because I was in a market where business, I don't want to say business was easy, but because it was certainly complicated and difficult at times, but it was a lot easier than trying to get into the Chicago market or trying to get into the LA market. As a younger person getting into this space, the fundamentals in Indianapolis just made a lot of sense to me. And all, cost of living here is way lower comparatively. Cost of property, taxes, again, all those market fundamentals created a really good cocktail for me and my business's success here. So, I guess parlaying into, the next piece of it is, what's next is I am looking at implementing some systems and processes into my business to help continue to grow and scale. You just like, physical exercise, you work out for a while and then you can sort of plateau. It's similar in business in that, the solutions that you came up with for, I'm messing up that quote, but there's something along the lines of solutions of today aren't going to fix the problems of tomorrow. And so I'm looking at, okay, well, where are the things that I need to adjust, tiny changes in my business today to set myself up for success down the road. That's, again, really exciting for me because I know I'm on the right path. I'm already having traction. I'm reading a book called Traction right now, but I'm already having traction in my business and looking at implementing processes to further improve that and continue to grow, continue to buy property here in Indianapolis is, everything that I've ever wanted for the last 5 years. So I'm sort of living the dream, so to speak, in my professional career.
That's so great. That's so great. Oh, it's awesome.
Exciting.
Wow. Well, our time is kind of zipping by here. I'm going crazy here. There's like so much.
We're talking fast.
Yeah, but I like that. I get a lot more content.
That's good.
It's excellent. We're now at our wrap it up segment.
Cool.
And if you are ready, we can go ahead and wrap it up. This one, we ask you a series of quick questions about resources that have been of value to you and that hopefully it'd be of interest to our listeners as well. So
let's spit.
Let's do it. Okay. All right. First question here. Favorite real estate book?
So I have two.
Okay,
hopefully
that's okay. You can do two. Yeah.
Yeah, there's two that whenever somebody asks me that, there's two that come to mind. I wish I would have read these books early on. I read them later on in my career, which is fine. But they're great for somebody starting out. And the first one is called Skip the Flip. It's by Hayden Crabtree. He's actually a friend of mine. I like that book, and Skip the Flip. You could probably guess where the title leads to, but it takes some more advanced real estate concepts that if you didn't come from a financial background or real estate background, takes those confusing concepts and breaks them down into kind of bite-sized digestible pieces. And then the second book that I really like is, I think this is the title, it's Crushing It in Apartments and Commercial Real Estate. It's by Brian Murray.
Yeah, Brian's been on the show. Yeah,
cool, awesome. Yeah, I love his book. Again, very similar. It takes some of those more complicated ideas about buying real estate and really just simplifies it, makes it an interesting story, makes it personable, makes it easy to relate to. And I think those two pieces just, they resonated with me.
That's great. Great books. Awesome. How about a favorite just general business book?
Good question. I really like Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. I think living by that, taking extreme ownership of your life and your business more specifically, makes and does wonders for you and your family and your community.
That's great. Great. And how about a website that you use that's just invaluable for you, both as an investor and a broker?
This is not a joke. I'm serious, but it's also a joke at the same time. And again, I have two. Google.com is the first one. You can learn so much getting online and just Googling for it. I've learned a lot doing it that way. So Google. Secondly, CoStar, hands down.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great resource that not enough people, tap into. And I know it can get expensive, but it's a great resource. How about a favorite app, something on your phone that helps you out?
this is going to be a gimme for you. It's going to be CoStar as well. They have a mobile app. The user interface isn't as great. There isn't much information. But if I'm driving down the road and I want to call an owner right then and there, or call somebody for a property right then and there, and I've got that app, I've won business that way, doing that instead of writing it down and coming back to it later when I get home.
Oh, really? That's great. So you can just do that.
Mobile app.
Oh, that's excellent. Excellent. How about a favorite quote?
Well, shoot, I feel like I gave all the good ones away earlier.
I know. You had a few of them in this.
I did.
You can do one of the repeats there.
No, I won't repeat it. There's one that I think about a lot. Used to consume a lot of PD, personal development content, and one that I like. I do not know who said this. You're going to pay the price of pain, or you're going to pay the price of regret. Ooh,
good one. Really good quote. We'll find out who this is from. And this one here, which I don't know if you've really had experience with, but I'm sure you probably have a great answer. If you lost absolutely everything, all your assets, and all you have is $1,000 in cash in your hand, knowing what you already know, how would you restart your real estate investing business or your real estate brokerage business?
Yeah. Well, both. I think first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the phone store and I'm going to buy a phone subscription. And then I'm going to make a lot of phone calls. And I'm probably going to I'll use maybe half the money on that. Probably use the other half setting up some lunches and meetings with some investors to build my network that way.
Great. Good. That's a good answer. Wow. Well, Cory, this has been great having you
Definitely.
on. I think that there's again, I think you're a guy that's doing it right, and I also think that for us, it's a win-win to have a broker like that who not only understands our needs, but doesn't waste our time too, in the same way that we wouldn't waste your time. And
absolutely.
So I think that's a real plus, and I can't say enough about you in terms of that. I mean, even when we met lunch with my wife, and you know, she already had you picked for our daughter, but she got married and just never came together. So but
that's great.
But you're that's the kind of guy you're like the guy next door. I
appreciate that.
You're a regular guy, and no pretense. You're just a good guy, and your integrity means something to you, and you live by it.
Absolutely.
And, that's awesome. So anyway, enough of the plugs here. I'll let other people decide to contact you, but I'm sure that there are those that do want to talk to you. And what's sort of the best way to find out about you, maybe even the properties that you list and that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Callgpg.com is my website. All my contact info is there. That's probably the easiest way to get in touch with me. So call GPG, like phone call, GPG, my company. And then on Instagram, I'm Cory the Broker, Cory, the Broker. Pretty easy to remember.
Awesome. Easy. That's easy stuff.
Yep.
And it's GP. Wait, no.
Yep. George, Paul, George.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. There we go. All right. Well, just so you guys know, his name's really not George. It's Cory. But
yeah, it's call GPG Gardner Property Group.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, not George, Paul, George.
All right. Well, it's the first time on the show, so you know what we do here, and we're called the Old Dogs, right? And so
I do. Yeah.
And I know you've been practicing all week, so do you want to just give us a good closing howl?
Yeah, let's go for it. Howl!
Oh, that was good. Good resonance on that, and the way it just kind of held on, and you wondered, "Whoa, is it going to keep going?" And then it just that was good, man. That might be, you might qualify for the Golden Howl Award. We do have a real Golden Howl Award.
Are you kidding? That's
no.
Great. Okay. You got a sound guy evaluating every howl.
You got it.
Yeah.
Well, Cory, thanks so much for being on. It's been great. A lot of good information. So thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome, Bill. Have a great rest of your day. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, well, I appreciate yours. And I also want to thank all our old dog listeners out there, too, for joining us. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing right now, but the fact that you've taken the time to join us means a lot, and we really appreciate it. Now, please note, old dog listeners, everything presented today here by Cory is going to be outlined in detail in our show notes on the Old Dogs website at olddogsreinetwork.com/blog. And you're going to look for the episode with Cory Gardner. Well, that's the show for today. Remember, cash flow is king and real estate investing the means. Until next time, keep moving forward and may God bless.
Thank you very much for visiting the Old Dogs REI Network. We would greatly appreciate if you would stop by iTunes and let us know what you think of the show. We would love if you could subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. The more ratings and reviews we receive, the more visible the podcast will be to others. Thank you.